Since it is Halloween, one of the things that we're going to be talking about are ghost stories, whether you believe in ghost stories, whether you don't believe in ghost stories. So Scott Knauer is going to be traveling around with his fancy new camera, asking people for different things that ghost experiences that they've had. We got started on this because I truly thought that Scott lived in a haunted house. I had the house wrong, but the ghost did actually live in the house that I was thinking of, so I think that that is an authentic ghost story. As the story continued, Scott told me that he is actually a descendant of the famous witch, or accused witch, I should say. I shouldn't say that she was a witch. Rebecca Nurse, who is one of the most famous people in the Salem witch trials. So whether or not he has a haunted house or not, I don't know, but being a descendant of Rebecca Nurse, I think, gives you some sort of lineage to a lot of really kind of creepy supernatural things. So I think Scott is the perfect person to go around and find out who has ghost stories and who doesn't. And even people who don't always want to put their ghost stories on camera have ghost stories that they'll tell you if it's not going to be documented. So look for Scott, tell him your ghost stories, and I think everybody will have a good time seeing what people come up with.
So my scary story was back in 8th grade. We took a trip to Mexico City and we stayed in a very old hotel. And we were on the 3rd floor. The 4th floor was closed for some mysterious reason. And so one of our nights there, we were laying in bed and we heard a knock on our balcony, which was impossible. And so we ran outside and had our chaperones come and check things out, and then later on we had found out that the room above us had been closed because long ago someone had committed suicide there. So whether we had an encounter, I don't know, but it was still very creepy.
I'm trying to find that.
I was serving in Iraq, and it was probably like 2:30, 3 o'clock at night, and I was on watch, and my buddy was sleeping, and I heard rustling out in front of our lines, and there's everything on that side of the line was supposed to be enemy, so there was no good guys over there, and so I had my weapon and everything, and I called for the countersign. There was no call back, and I called for one more time. There was no call back. And finally, I heard a voice say, "Oh, it's Marine." So I pulled on my night vision goggles, and it was Marine. He was missing his helmet, and he was hurt. So I pulled him into the hole with us, and he said, "Oh, I need some water." So I gave him some water, and he's drinking the water. I said, "Hey, what unit you with?" And he said, "Oh, I'm with 19 First Battalion, or 17, excuse me, 1st Battalion, 7th Marines," and and he said, "Hey, where's battalion headquarters?" And I said, "It's about 3 miles back that way." So he handed me the water back and took off. So the next day, I asked my buddy, I said, "Hey, remember that Marine that came in the hole with us?" He said, "What are you talking about? There was no one there. No one came in, you know." So I went back to battalion headquarters for something, I can't remember what it was for, and I asked the guy on duty, "Hey, did anybody come in here last night?" And they'd have to report to this one area, you can't go anywhere else, you know. And he said, "No, there was no one reporting there." I said, "Hey," he said his unit was 17, and he said, "There's no one from 1st Marines here, it's all 2nd Marines." So that had to be, I mean, so much happens over there, you'd think that, you know, that it had to be a ghost, and I can't explain that, so.
Okay, so the store I worked in California, there was, you know, everybody kind of thought, "Oh, it's funny, there's a ghost," but it used to work its way between 3 different stores, and I was there late one night closing, and I heard an argument going on in my bathroom, and there was nobody else in the bathroom. And I turned off the lights and I left for the rest of the evening. We also had an incident where I was talking to one of my coworkers and a whole stack of boxes fell over on her, and they were sturdy. We stacked them the right way and they all fell over on her.
Do you know the history of maybe what caused this?
It was built into a mountain. It was kind of in a depression area where it was, you know, they say like granite, and or there's certain things that attract spirits, and so the way it was built into the mountain, yeah, they think that's probably where that came from. And then one of my other girls, she wound up working for me, but she worked at the store 3 doors down, and she said that she walked into her back room one night, and it was a shoe store. She said you'd see boxes moving out. Yeah. So it was verified by more than myself. Other people saw it. Other people had experiences with it.
Okay, we have moved to Mississippi, Columbus, Mississippi in the summer. And then in October, I looked around, everything was beautifully decorated. And then the doorbell rang. And I opened the door in the afternoon, and in front of me were people wrapped in bandages and had bloody eyes poking out and had blood all over them, and it scared me because it was ugly. I'm from Germany, as you all know, and in Germany Halloween we have it in February, and it's beautiful. It's not ugly. So for me, it frightened me. I mean, I jump, by anything that's really grotesque and ugly. So for me, it was a big horror. I opened the door, and whatever I cared, I dropped and I screamed.
Now I am.
Okay, we'll turn it off.
Okay, look, I'm not even touching the button.
Because
I had no like Pinos Altos, New Mexico. Do you know where that's at?
I think so.
It's kind of a little tourist trap place by Silver City.
Okay.
My dad used to work in the Buckhorn Saloon there, and I worked there during summer. But it was an old-timey like saloon and opera house. And the opera house was
Did you ever encounter anything over there?
If you stayed there much past closing time, you kind of heard weird things. So, just never knew. Doors shutting, or sometimes you'd hear weird laughing coming from the opera part of it, and there would be nobody over there. Let's just say we never went and bust the tables by ourselves. We always went in pairs.
Here on the weekends, like Saturday, it was me and another work study. We were sitting in the commons, and you just hear the piano playing from the piano room upstairs. So we look at each other like, we're supposed to be the only ones here, besides the gym. I know nobody's came through any of the doors or anything like that. So we walk upstairs, open the door, there's the lights are off and everything. And right when we open the door, the piano stops playing. So.
My wife and I bought some tickets for a weekend getaway through the ENMU auction, and we decided that we were going to spend a nice dinner at the St. James because it was a historic site, and we were staying at the Kit Carson Inn. Well, we entered the St. James hotel, and I immediately got this weird feeling, like there was a static electricity inside the room, and my wife kept knowing where things were missing. She's related to Sam Bass, who's a famous outlaw. And I guess he had ties up in Cimarron, but I'm getting ahead of myself here. What happened is we ended up, looking at the things and stuff, and there was a door that was on the downstairs that was propped open, and it said no admittance. And my wife was wondering, well, what's in that room? And I was walking through the hallway, and I felt like this vortex, like I was kind of wibbly wobbly, just couldn't really get my balance and stuff. And I heard this voice say, "It's not for you," and the door shut. And we're both kind of looking at each other like, did that just happen?
And so I was arguing with my mom, telling her, hey, I'm going to go out with my friends and so forth. My mom kept telling me, you're going to get in trouble if you go. It's already like 9:30, 10 o'clock at night. And I said, it's okay, I can handle it. So against my mother's wishes, I left. That night it was also real. It was kind of rainy, but it was real foggy. You couldn't hardly see anything in front of you. I get in my car and I'm driving around this little curve where the arroyo, winds. It's a winding road, sort of. And so when I'm going around, as soon as I leave my mom's house, there is when I think I see my first ghost. There's this lady dressed in completely white, and she is clear as daylight, but although it's nighttime, and it's like 9:30, 10 o'clock at night, no moon or anything like that. And so this lady's standing in front of my car, and I'm sitting there and I'm thinking to myself, move, I'm going to run you over. This lady was completely in white hair, couldn't really distinguish her face or anything like that. So I kept driving my vehicle, and I kept thinking, this vehicle, I'm going to run her over. Well, the faster I drove, the faster this movement came, but it went backward. So I stopped my vehicle and I went backwards, and the lady came back towards my car. And so I kind of played this game like once with her. I did again forward and so forth. And I said, this is too much. I can't handle this, you know. And so anyway, I stopped. I put it back into my. I wasn't more than 2 blocks from my house, because that's as far as I got, you know. And when I got back, I got out of my car, looked around, and I could still see this lady standing next to me, and I could hear like a screeching sound from her. And so inside my car, I couldn't hear anything. And from there, you know, it's like she was a sinister type laugh. And at that point, I thought, my mom had forewarned me that something was going to happen to me.
So,
No, I really think I've seen Hawk do some very suspicious activity.
Gilbert.
And I'm not
You
sure
have
what
any
planet
stories?
he's from, but I don't think that it's probably this.
Gilbert said no.
Sometimes you hear noises, voices sometimes. It kind of freaks me out. Dennis.
do you believe in ghosts?
No,
Why?
never seen one. I don't see any scientific literature that supports the idea that there are such a thing.
We were on finishing our patrol around the building, and I was in a vehicle with one of the other guys, and we're driving by, and we saw here at the stairs, right in front of Baby J's, we saw what we thought was a person standing on the stairs. So we actually went back around, and I mean, it was quick. It was just a couple seconds. We got back in the building and searched the entire building, all up on the second floor, all the bathrooms, everything, and there was no one in the building. But I even have the description. It was like a white, off-white, gray shirt and jeans the guy was wearing. He was probably like 6'1", kind of stocky. So there was no one in the building. But 3 of us saw the same person standing on the stairs.
Yeah, the mall here is built, at least they think it is built on an old burial ground, and so we used to see one of myself and another girl, actually Nick's sister, we would see things like out of the corner of our eye every once in a while too.
So this is the true story of when I was visited by a spirit. I was about 12 years old, 12 or 13 years old, and my mom and dad have their bedroom at our house, and then my brother's bedroom is to the side, and then mine is across from my brother's bedroom. And so my dad gets up for work at 4 a.m. So he wakes up for work. He's a steel worker. He goes to work at 4, and he wakes up at 4, leaves for work at 5. So my mom is by herself in the bedroom, my brother's sleeping, and I'm sleeping. So the dog starts barking. We had a dog that lived outside, and he starts barking and barking and barking and barking. So my mom thinks something's outside, because that's how she thinks, and she goes into my brother's room and sleeps in his bed, because she can see outside. She can have a good view of the outside to see if there's intruders or demons or whatever that she's worried about. So she's in my brother's room. So I wake up to this blaring sound, and it's my dad's alarm clock. And so I go looking into my parents' room. I'm like, why is this alarm clock going off? It's not supposed to be going off. What is happening? Because it is like 6:13 in the morning, and So I go in there and my mom's not there. So I'm freaking out. Where's my mom at? Where's my mom at? Where did she go? What's happening? So I go and I try to get my brother awake, and my mom's in there. And so I'm like, Mom, what's going on? And she's like, oh my gosh, what's happening? So she runs in there and she turns off his alarm clock, and we can't figure out why it's going off. It's 6:13 in the morning. My dad's already been at work for an hour. What is happening? So she goes back to bed. I go back to bed. Marco goes back to bed. And a couple minutes later, the phone rang. And so my mom answers the phone, and it's the nursing home that my grandfather was a resident of, saying that he had passed away. And so we're all very sad, and my mom is like, well, did it happen in his sleep? And they're like, yes, he passed away at 6:13 in the morning. So we called my dad, and he's very sad, and all of us are just kind of like, whoa, this is really weird. So my mom is very into spirituality and the spirit world, and she believes that he came to say goodbye. So he came, and he kind of flew past our house and woke up the dog, and that's why the dog was barking, because we all know animals kind of sense things. And then he let the alarm clock go off to let us know that he was gone.
Our table was ready. We had a nice meal, and we're sitting around, and all of a sudden, you could hear sounds of a poker game. And you could hear the cards being shuffled and the chips being played and whatnot. And she says, "Do you hear that?" And I said, "Yeah, I do." And she says, "Well, it's over back at the old bar area." So I said, "Oh, let's see if we can go join the game." There's nobody in there. And we were the only people, other than the cook and the waiter and the waitress, that were in the restaurant. And they said, "No, there's nothing going on." And we're thinking, "God, this is really strange." And so all through the meal, as we were eating, I kept feeling like this weight and this heaviness coming over me. And and I told her, I said, "There's something wrong here." And I said, "Do you feel safe?" And she says, "Well, yeah." And I said, "Well, look up." And you can see the bullet holes up in the ceiling right above our table. And she says, "Well, what does that mean?" And I said, I really don't know. But all of a sudden, we get this like force of energy that hit our table. And my wife said, "Sam, protect us." And all of a sudden, it dissipated. And it was gone. And so we finished our meal, and we're just going, "This is kind of weird,"